In one violent shove, Princess Niran sent Austin Cox tumbling to the polished floor of her lavish quarters. The petted human janitor landed hard, pain shooting through his body as he stared up at the towering alien royal. At over 8 feet tall, Niran glared down at Austin with utter disdain, her golden skin shimmering under the ethereal light. "You insignificant creature," Niran spat, her voice dripping with contempt. "How dare you enter my chamber without permission?" Austin pushed himself to his feet, his 5'6" frame dwarfed by the alien princess. He brushed off his uniform, meeting Niran's icy gaze with a defiant stare of his own. "I'm just doing my job, Your Highness. The Emperor himself tasked me with cleaning your quarters." Niran scoffed, turning her back on the human. "As if a little thing like you could ever be trusted with such a responsibility. Your kind are nothing more than pests, scurrying about the galaxy like vermin." Austin clenched his jaw, biting back a retort. He knew he couldn't afford to lose this job, not when so many humans depended on him. The Olean Empire had subjugated Earth centuries ago, reducing humans to little more than servants and slaves. But Austin refused to let Niran's insults get under his skin. He had a job to do, and he would see it through. As he set about cleaning Niran's lavish bathroom, Austin's mind raced with thoughts of rebellion. He knew that humans were capable of so much more than the aliens believed. They just needed a chance to prove it. Lost in his musings, Austin didn't notice the vial of glowing nanites balanced precariously on the edge of the sink. As he reached for a cleaning cloth, his elbow bumped the vial, sending it crashing to the floor. The nanites splashed onto Niran's bare legs, and Austin watched in horror as they rapidly absorbed into her skin. What happened next defied belief. Niran began to shrink before Austin's eyes, her towering frame diminishing with each passing second. Within moments, she stood at human height, barely reaching Austin's chin. The princess stared at her hands in shock, her once commanding presence reduced to a mere shadow of itself. Austin's mind reeled with the implications. The nanites were clearly some kind of experimental technology, designed to alter the physiology of other species. And now they had transformed the heir to the Olean Empire into a little princess, vulnerable and exposed. Niran's eyes blazed with fury as she turned on Austin. "What have you done to me, you little fool?" she demanded, her voice trembling with rage and fear. Before Austin could respond, an alarm blared through the palace. The Emperor had discovered his daughter's condition and was frantically searching for her. Austin knew that in her current state, Niran was in grave danger. Her father would stop at nothing to restore her to her former glory, even if it meant sacrificing the lives of countless humans. In that moment, Austin made a decision that would change the course of the galaxy. He grabbed Niran's hand and pulled her towards a secret maintenance hatch, his heart pounding in his chest. "Come with me if you want to live," he whispered urgently. As they vanished into the bowels of the space station, Austin knew that he had just set in motion a chain of events that would challenge everything the aliens believed about humans. He would have to find a way to keep the princess safe, uncover the truth behind the nanites, and prove to the galaxy that a little human could make a universe-altering difference. Austin and Niran raced through the narrow maintenance tunnels, the princess's oversized gown billowing behind her like a makeshift parachute. The once pristine fabric was now stained with grease and grime, a far cry from the opulence of her royal quarters. Niran stumbled, her smaller stature making it difficult to keep pace with Austin's hurried strides. "Slow down, you little pest," she hissed, her voice echoing off the metal walls. "I can't keep up with these ridiculous rags tangling around my feet." Austin glanced back, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "Maybe it's time for a fashion change, Your Highness. I hear garbage bag chic is all the rage this season." Niran scowled, but before she could retort, Austin held up a hand, signaling for silence. The sound of heavy footsteps reverberated through the tunnels, growing louder with each passing second. The janitor's eyes widened as he recognized the telltale clanking of alien armor. "Zardock," he whispered, his heart pounding in his chest. "We need to move now." Grabbing Niran's hand, Austin pulled her down a side passage, his knowledge of the station's labyrinthine layout guiding their desperate flight. They emerged into a dimly lit chamber filled with humming machinery and glowing screens. Austin's breath caught in his throat as he realized where they were. "A medical lab," he murmured, his eyes scanning the classified equipment. "What are they doing down here?" Niran's gaze fell upon a monitor displaying a complex diagram of the nanites that had transformed her. She stepped closer, her brow furrowing as she read the accompanying text. "Interspecies pregnancy. What madness is this?" Before Austin could respond, the lab's door hissed open, revealing the hulking form of Captain Zarduk. The alien's eyes blazed with fury as he spotted the princess, his clawed hand already reaching for his weapon. "Step away from her highness, you filthy little human," he growled, his voice dripping with menace. Austin's mind raced, desperately searching for an escape route. His eyes fell upon a chute-marked waste disposal, and a wild idea formed in his head. Without hesitation, he grabbed Niran around the waist and leaped toward the opening, sending them both hurtling down into the unknown. They landed in a heap amidst a pile of foul-smelling garbage. The princess's face contorted in disgust. "You miserable little creature," she shrieked, struggling to her feet. "Look what you've done to me." Austin couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of the once regal Niran covered in filth, her makeshift rags clinging to her diminutive frame. "Welcome to the real world, princess. It's not all glitz and glamour down here." As they picked their way through the refuse, the station's downtrodden inhabitants eyed them warily. Austin led Niran through the winding alleys, searching for a place to catch their breath and plan their next move. A friendly face emerged from the shadows, beckoning them into a ramshackle dwelling. "Quickly, in here," the alien merchant whispered, ushering them inside. "I'm Gree, and you two look like you could use some help." Austin and Niran collapsed onto a tattered seat, their adrenaline-fueled escape finally catching up with them. As they sought to regain their bearings, an ominous broadcast echoed through the cramped space. "Attention all inhabitants of the Nexus," Emperor Vor's voice boomed, his holographic image towering over the room. "A treacherous human has abducted my daughter, the beloved Princess Niran. A substantial bounty will be awarded for their capture. Do not let these vile creatures escape justice." Austin and Niran exchanged a worried glance, the gravity of their situation sinking in. They were now the galaxy's most wanted fugitives, with nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. As the broadcast faded, a heavy silence settled over the room. "We need answers," Austin said, his voice low and determined. "We have to find out what those nanites really are and why the Emperor is so desperate to get you back." Niran nodded, a newfound resolve hardening her delicate features. "For once, little human, I agree with you. Our survival depends on uncovering the truth." With the weight of the galaxy on their shoulders, the unlikely duo began to plot their next move, knowing that every step could be their last. The clock was ticking, and the fate of countless lives hung in the balance. Austin's mind raced as he led Niran through the winding alleys of the Nexus underbelly. The stench of decay and waste assaulted their nostrils, a stark contrast to the sterile opulence of the upper levels. He knew they couldn't stay in the shadows forever, but finding a safe haven was only part of the plan. They needed information, and they needed it fast. "We need to find Dr. Zara Zox," Austin whispered, his eyes darting from shadow to shadow. "She's our only hope of understanding these nanites and clearing our names." Niran stumbled, still adjusting to her rapid change in stature. "And how do you propose we find the scientist? In case you haven't noticed, we're the most wanted fugitives in the galaxy." Austin's lips curled into a wry smile. "I have my ways, princess. Being a janitor has its perks. You'd be surprised what people say when they think no one's listening." They approached a dilapidated structure, its neon sign flickering weakly in the dim light. The rusty reactor was a notorious dive bar where secrets were bought and sold as easily as a pint of synth ale. "A bar?" Niran hissed, her nose wrinkling in disgust. You expect to find a brilliant scientist in this cesspool. Trust me, Austin replied, adjusting his makeshift disguise, a tattered cloak and a smear of grease across his face. This is exactly where we need to be. They slipped inside, the smoky atmosphere filled with the hum of low conversations and the clinking of glasses. Alien patrons of all shapes and sizes occupied the dimly lit tables, their eyes glinting with suspicion as they surveyed the newcomers. Austin scanned the room, his gaze settling on a familiar figure at the far corner. The hooded alien with a sleek insectoid appearance sat alone, nursing a drink. Dr. Zara Zox was known for her brilliance in genetic engineering, but her fall from grace had left her with few allies. That's her, Austin whispered to Niran. Stay close and let me do the talking. They approached the table, and Austin cleared his throat to get the scientist's attention. Zara's hooded eyes flicked up, her expression unreadable. Austin Cox, she said, her voice a low hiss. It's been a while. What brings you to my corner of the galaxy? Trouble, as usual, Austin replied, sliding into the seat across from her. Niran hesitated for a moment before sitting beside him. We need your help, Zara. We've gotten ourselves into a bit of a mess, and you're the only one who can get us out of it. Zara's gaze shifted to Niran, her eyes narrowing as she took in the princess's altered appearance. And who might this be? Niran lifted her chin, defiance flashing in her eyes. I am Princess Niran of the Olean Empire, and this human has dragged me into a nightmare. Zara's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. The princess, reduced to the company of a janitor. My, how the mighty have fallen. Austin leaned forward, his tone urgent. Zara, this is serious. Niran was exposed to some kind of Nanites, and they did this to her. We need to know what they are and how to reverse the effects before the Emperor finds us. Zara studied Niran for a moment longer before nodding slowly. Nanites, you say? I've heard rumors about the Empire's experiments with interspecies manipulation, but I never imagined they'd be so reckless as to test it on their own kind. We don't have much time, Niran interjected, her voice laced with frustration. My father has put a bounty on our heads, and it's only a matter of time before his forces close in on us. Zara's antennae twitched as she considered their predicament. I may be able to help, but it won't be easy. The Nanites are designed to alter genetic codes on a fundamental level. Reversing their effects would require a deep understanding of their programming, and that means access to the Empire's research data. Can you do it? Austin asked, his voice tense with anticipation. Zara nodded slowly. I can try, but we'll need to break into one of the Empire's secure research facilities, and even then, there's no guarantee of success. Niran's eyes widened in alarm. You're talking about committing treason against the Empire. If we fail, we'll all be executed. Austin met her gaze, his expression resolute. If we don't try, you'll be stuck like this forever. And who knows what other horrors the Empire is hiding. This is our chance to do something that matters. Niran hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. But she knew Austin was right. If they didn't act now, the consequences could be far worse than anything they could imagine. Fine, she said finally, her voice firm. But if we're going to do this, we do it my way. I know how to navigate the Empire's systems, and I won't let some human ruin my only chance at survival. Austin smirked. Fair enough, princess. Let's show them what a human and an alien princess can do when they team up. With Zara's help, they began to formulate a plan to infiltrate the research facility. The odds were against them, but they had something the Empire didn't, each other. As they prepared to embark on their dangerous mission, the trio knew that the path ahead was fraught with peril, but they also knew that together, they were capable of anything. The clock was ticking, and the fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders. The journey to the Empire's research facility was fraught with danger. Austin, Niran, and Zara traveled under the cover of darkness, using secret routes and contacts within the underworld to avoid detection. The bounty on their heads made every step a potential risk, but the stakes were too high to turn back now. They arrived at the facility under the guise of maintenance workers, a ruse that played to Austin's strengths. His knowledge of the station's inner workings proved invaluable as they navigated through security checkpoints and patrols, their forged credentials holding up under scrutiny. "Remember," Zara whispered as they approached the facility's entrance, "once we're inside, we stick to the plan. We get the data and get out. No heroics." Austin nodded, adjusting his tool belt to conceal the small arsenal of gadgets he had smuggled in. "Got it. Niran, you ready?" Niran, now dressed in a stolen uniform that concealed her identity, gave a curt nod. "Let's get this over with." The facility's interior was a stark contrast to the grimy underbelly of the Nexus. Pristine white corridors stretched out in all directions, the walls lined with state-of-the-art technology. The air was sterile, almost oppressive in its clinical precision. They made their way to the research wing, their hearts pounding with each step. Zara led the way, her insectoid form gliding silently through the halls. They encountered few staff, but each encounter was a tense moment, with the fear of being recognized looming over them. Finally, they reached the central lab, where the data they needed was stored. Zara quickly accessed the terminal, her mandibles clicking in concentration as she bypassed the security protocols. "Just a few more seconds," she muttered, her eyes fixed on the screen. But those few seconds felt like an eternity. Austin and Niran stood guard at the door, their nerves stretched to the breaking point. The facility was too quiet, the silence amplifying every tiny sound. "Got it," Zara said suddenly, her voice breaking the tension. "I've downloaded the data. Let's move." They turned to leave, but as they stepped into the corridor, an alarm blared to life, the lights flashing red. "Intruder alert. Security breach in the research wing." "Run," Austin shouted, grabbing Niran's hand and pulling her down the hallway. Zara followed closely behind, her agility allowing her to keep pace with the fleeing humans. The facility's security forces were quick to respond, their heavy footsteps echoing through the corridors. Austin led the group through a maze of passageways, his knowledge of the layout their only advantage. They reached the facility's main hangar, where a small shuttle was docked. It was their only chance of escape. "Get in," Austin yelled, shoving Niran towards the shuttle. Zara was already at the controls, preparing for a quick launch. As they scrambled aboard, the security forces burst into the hangar, weapons drawn. Austin slammed the hatch shut just as a barrage of laser fire pelted the shuttle's hull. "Zara, get us out of here," Niran shouted, her voice tinged with panic. Zara's claws danced over the controls, and the shuttle roared to life. With a deafening blast, they shot out of the hangar and into the vastness of space. But their escape was far from secure. The facility had scrambled fighters to intercept them, and the shuttle's shields were not designed for combat. "Hang on," Zara warned, veering the shuttle into a series of evasive maneuvers. The stars blurred outside the windows as they twisted and turned, dodging the pursuing fighters. Austin gripped the armrests of his seat, his knuckles white. "We can't outrun them forever. We need to find a way to lose them." Niran's eyes were fixed on the controls, her mind racing. "There's a debris field near the Nexus. It's dangerous, but it could provide cover." "Do it," Austin agreed. "It's our best shot." Zara didn't hesitate. She altered course, the shuttle diving towards the debris field. The pursuing fighters followed, their lasers slicing through the void. The debris field was a chaotic mess of twisted metal and shattered ships, the remnants of past battles. Zara expertly guided the shuttle through the obstacles, the fighters struggling to keep up. But as they dodged and weaved through the debris, a laser blast struck the shuttle's engines, sending them into a spiral. "Brace yourselves," Zara shouted, wrestling with the controls. The shuttle careened out of control, crashing into a massive hulk of a derelict ship. The impact sent them tumbling, the world spinning around them. When the shuttle finally came to a stop, they were deep within the bowels of the derelict, the twisted metal around them sealing off any chance of escape. Austin groaned as he pulled himself up, his body aching from the crash. "Is everyone okay?" "I'm fine," Niran replied, though her voice was shaky. "Zara." Zara emerged from the cockpit, her carapace cracked but intact. "I'll live, but we're trapped." Austin looked around at the dark, enclosed space. "We need to find a way out of here before those fighters catch up with us." Niran nodded, determination hardening her features. "Let's move. We can't afford to stay here." Together, they ventured deeper into the derelict, their path uncertain, but their resolve unshaken. They had the data they needed, but now they faced a new challenge, surviving long enough to use it. The derelict ship was a labyrinth of twisted metal and forgotten technology. As they moved deeper into its dark corridors, Austin, Niran, and Zara found themselves surrounded by the remnants of a long-lost civilization. The air was thick with dust, and the walls were adorned with strange symbols that hinted at the ship's mysterious origins. "We need to find a way to send out a distress signal," Zara said, her voice echoing in the silence. "If we can contact someone sympathetic to our cause, we might still have a chance." Austin nodded, but his thoughts were focused on their immediate survival. The shuttle was damaged beyond repair, and they had no idea if the Empire's forces were still hunting them. The only thing they could do was press on and hope they found a way out. As they navigated the ship's twisting passages, Niran stumbled upon a control room. The consoles were covered in dust, but the screens still flickered with faint energy. "This could be it," she said, wiping away the grime to reveal the controls. "If we can power this up, we might be able to send a signal." Zara examined the controls, her claws deftly manipulating the ancient technology. "It's going to take some time to get this running, but I think it's doable. Keep an eye out for trouble while I work." Austin and Niran stood guard at the entrance, their nerves on edge. The ship creaked and groaned around them, as if the very structure was protesting their presence. After what felt like an eternity, Zara finally managed to power up the control room. The screens flickered to life, displaying strange glyphs and readouts. "Got it," Zara said, her voice filled with relief. "I'm transmitting a distress signal now. Let's hope someone picks it up." But before they could breathe a sigh of relief, the ship shuddered violently. A low rumble echoed through the corridors, growing louder with each passing second. "What now?" Austin muttered, his eyes scanning the room for any sign of danger. Niran's eyes widened as she realized what was happening. "We're not alone. Something else is in here with us." The rumbling grew louder, and the walls of the ship began to tremble. Suddenly, the floor beneath them gave way, and they were sent tumbling into a lower level of the ship. They landed in a heap, the impact jarring them to the core. Austin groaned as he pushed himself up, his body aching from the fall. "Everyone okay?" he called out, his voice strained. "I'm fine," Niran replied, though her voice was shaky. "Zara." Zara was already on her feet, her eyes scanning the dark surroundings. "I'm here, but I think we've just stumbled into something we weren't meant to find." The lower level of the ship was filled with massive, dormant machines, their purpose unknown. But what caught their attention was the massive central chamber, where a pulsating energy field crackled with power. Austin's eyes widened as he realized what they were looking at. That's a quantum drive. A massive one. Niran's expression was one of awe and fear. This ship, it must have been some kind of experimental vessel. But why would it be abandoned here? Zara's mandibles clicked as she pieced together the puzzle. The Nanites, the drive, the ship, it's all connected. This ship was conducting experiments on interspecies manipulation, using technology that could rewrite genetic codes on a massive scale. Austin felt a chill run down his spine. So the Empire's been experimenting with this kind of technology for who knows how long. And now they've got it out in the open. Niran's gaze hardened. "We need to destroy this ship. If the Empire gets its hands on this technology, it could mean the end of countless species." Zara nodded in agreement. But we need to be careful. If we trigger the drive the wrong way, it could wipe us out along with the ship. As they prepared to sabotage the quantum drive, the ship shuddered again. The sound of distant footsteps echoed through the corridors, growing closer with each passing second. Security forces, Austin muttered, his heart pounding. They must have tracked us down. Niran gripped her weapon tightly, her expression resolute. We don't have much time. Let's finish this and get out of here. Working together, they rigged the quantum drive to overload, setting a timer that would give them just enough time to escape. But as they prepared to leave, the security forces burst into the chamber, weapons drawn. Freeze. The lead officer barked, his voice amplified by his helmet. Austin, Niran, and Zara exchanged a quick glance. They knew they were outnumbered, but they couldn't afford to back down now. With a nod from Niran, they opened fire, using the machinery for cover. The chamber erupted into chaos as laser blasts ricocheted off the walls, the energy field crackling with power. As the battle raged on, the timer on the quantum drive ticked down, each second bringing them closer to destruction. Go! Austin shouted, covering their retreat as they made a desperate dash for the exit. They raced through the ship's corridors, the sounds of the battle fading behind them. The walls around them trembled as the quantum drive's overload reached critical levels. They reached the shuttle bay just as the ship began to tear itself apart. The derelict groaned and shuddered, the metal walls warping under the immense pressure. Austin grabbed Zara and Niran, pulling them towards an emergency escape pod. Get in. Now. They piled into the pod, slamming the hatch shut just as the ship was consumed in a blinding flash of light. The pod ejected from the ship, hurtling into space just as the derelict exploded in a brilliant burst of energy. The shockwave sent the pod spinning, but they managed to stabilize it, drifting away from the wreckage. Austin slumped back in his seat, his breath coming in ragged gasps. We did it. We actually did it. Niran's expression was one of grim satisfaction. But this isn't over. The Empire won't stop until they find us. We need to find a way to use the data we gathered to expose them. Zara nodded, her eyes gleaming with determination. And we'll need allies. This fight is bigger than any of us. As they drifted through space, the trio knew that their journey was far from over. They had taken a crucial step, but the road ahead was filled with uncertainty and danger. But for now, they had each other, and that was enough. After the harrowing escape from the derelict ship, Austin, Niran, and Zara found themselves adrift in space, with no clear destination. The Empire was relentless in its pursuit, and they knew they couldn't stay hidden forever. The data they had retrieved from the research facility was their only weapon, but it would be useless unless they found a way to share it with the galaxy. We need to find a safe place to regroup, Austin said, his voice weary but determined. Somewhere we can analyze the data and figure out our next move. Niran nodded, her mind already working on a plan. There's a rebel outpost on the outskirts of the Treacherous system. It's well hidden and fortified. If we can reach it, we'll have the support we need. Zara adjusted the pod's navigation system, setting a course for the Treacherous system. Let's hope they welcome fugitives with open arms. The journey was tense and silent, each of them lost in their thoughts. The Treacherous system was far from the heart of the Empire, a remote and desolate region where few dared to venture, but it was also a haven for those who opposed the Empire's rule. As they approached the outpost, the pod sensors detected a network of hidden defenses, mines, automated turrets, and cloaked ships, all designed to protect the base from unwanted visitors. This place is locked down tight, Austin muttered, impressed by the outpost's defenses. We're not here to cause trouble, Niran said, activating the pod's communication system. This is Princess Niran of the Olean Empire requesting permission to land. We seek asylum and alliance. There was a long pause, and for a moment, Austin feared they would be turned away. But then, a voice crackled through the speakers. Princess Niran, Your reputation precedes you. We've been expecting you. Proceed to the designated landing zone. Zara guided the pod into the outpost hangar, where a group of armed rebels waited to greet them. The leader, a grizzled alien with a scar running down his face, stepped forward. "Welcome to Citarus," he said, his tone cautious. "I'm Commander Rax. We've heard whispers about your defection, Princess. But what brings you to our doorstep?" Niran stepped forward, her posture regal despite the circumstances. "The Empire has crossed a line, Commander. They're conducting experiments that threaten the very fabric of the galaxy. We have proof, and we need your help to expose them." Rax's eyes narrowed as he studied her, but there was no mistaking the sincerity in her voice. "Proof, you say? Very well. Let's see what you've got." They were led to a secure briefing room, where Zara began uploading the data they had retrieved. As the screens lit up with detailed schematics, logs, and reports, the room fell into a tense silence. This is worse than we imagined," Rax muttered, his expression darkening as he read through the files. "The Empire is experimenting with genetic manipulation on a massive scale. If this technology falls into the wrong hands, it could spell doom for countless species. That's why we need to act now," Niran said, her voice firm. "We can't let the Empire continue these experiments. We need to rally the galaxy against them." Rax nodded slowly, the weight of the situation sinking in. "You're right. But it won't be easy. The Empire's grip is strong, and there are many who won't risk standing against them." "Then we'll show them the truth," Austin interjected, his eyes burning with determination. "We'll spread this information across the galaxy, make sure everyone knows what the Empire is really up to." Zara nodded in agreement. "We have the data, and we have the means to disseminate it. But we'll need to be careful. The Empire will stop at nothing to silence us." Rax considered their words, his mind already working on a plan. "We can use our network to broadcast the data to key systems, but we'll need to move quickly. Once the Empire realizes what we're doing, they'll come down on us with everything they've got." "Then let's not waste any time," Niran said, her resolve unshaken. "The galaxy needs to know the truth, and we're the ones who are going to deliver it." As they began to mobilize, the outpost buzzed with activity. Messages were sent, allies were contacted, and preparations were made for the inevitable confrontation with the Empire. Austin, Niran, and Zara found themselves at the heart of a growing rebellion, their actions setting off a chain of events that would shake the galaxy to its core. But as they worked tirelessly to prepare for the coming storm, they knew that the real battle was yet to come. The Empire was vast and powerful, and the path ahead was fraught with danger. Yet despite the odds, they pressed on, driven by the belief that their fight was just, and that the galaxy deserved better than the tyranny of the Empire. As the outpost's defenses were strengthened and the final preparations were made, they stood together, united in their cause. The battle for the galaxy's future was about to begin. The rebel outpost in the Citarus system was a hive of activity as the countdown to the broadcast began. Word had spread quickly, and allies from across the galaxy had pledged their support. The stakes were higher than ever, and everyone knew that this was a fight for survival. Austin, Niran, and Zara stood together in the command center, watching as the final preparations were made. The data they had retrieved was ready to be broadcast, and the outpost's powerful transmitters were primed to send the information to every corner of the galaxy. "Once we start the broadcast, there's no turning back," Rax said, his voice heavy with the weight of what was to come. "The Empire will come for us, and they'll come hard." "We're ready," Niran replied, her eyes steely with determination. "We've come too far to back down now." Zara checked the systems one last time, ensuring that everything was in place. "The transmission is set. Once we go live, the galaxy will know the truth." Austin felt a knot of tension in his stomach. This was it, the moment they had been fighting for. But even with the rebels' support, he knew that the odds were stacked against them. "Let's do this," he said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. Rax gave a curt nod and signaled the technicians to begin the broadcast. The screens flickered to life, and the outpost transmitters hummed with energy as the data was sent out across the galaxy. For a moment, there was silence, an eerie calm before the storm. Then, all hell broke loose. The Empire's response was swift and brutal. Ships began appearing on the outpost's sensors, a massive fleet descending upon the treacherous system. The rebel outpost's defenses sprang into action, but it was clear that they were outnumbered and outgunned. "They're here," Zara said, her voice tight with tension. "And they're not holding back. We need to hold them off for as long as we can," Rex said, his expression grim. "Every minute we buy gives the transmission more time to spread." The command center erupted into chaos as orders were shouted, and the outpost's defenders scrambled to their positions. Austin, Niran, and Zara were swept up in the frenzy, each of them preparing for the battle that was about to begin. As the Empire's fleet closed in, the outpost's guns roared to life, filling the void of space with a barrage of laser fire. The first wave of enemy ships was met with a wall of resistance, but the sheer number of Imperial forces was overwhelming. "We can't hold them off forever," Zara warned, her claws dancing over the controls as she directed the outpost's defenses. "They'll break through eventually." "Then we make every second count," Niran replied, her voice filled with resolve. "We need to give the galaxy a chance to see the truth." Austin was at the forefront of the battle, using his knowledge of the outpost's systems to help coordinate the defense. He knew that they were fighting a losing battle, but he refused to give in to despair. As the battle raged on, the outpost's shields began to falter, and enemy ships started to breach their defenses. The command center shook with each impact, the walls reverberating with the force of the explosions. "Rax, we need to evacuate," Austin urged, his voice filled with urgency. "If we stay here, we're all going to die." Rax shook his head, his expression resolute. "I'm not leaving this post, not while there's still a chance to fight." Niran placed a hand on Rax's shoulder, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Your sacrifice won't be forgotten, Commander. But we need to ensure that the truth gets out, even if we don't make it." Rax hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Get to the escape pods. I'll hold them off for as long as I can." With a heavy heart, Austin, Niran, and Zara made their way to the escape pods, the sounds of battle growing fainter as they moved through the outpost corridors. The walls were scared with damage, and the air was thick with the smell of burning metal. They reached the escape pods just as the outpost's defenses finally gave way. The command center erupted in a blinding explosion, and the entire structure began to collapse. Austin and Zara climbed into one of the pods, while Niran took the controls. "Hang on," she warned, her voice tense with determination. The pod ejected from the outpost just as it was consumed in a massive fireball. The force of the explosion sent them spinning through space, but Niran managed to stabilize the pod, guiding it away from the wreckage. As they drifted away from the battlefield, Austin looked back at the smoldering remains of the outpost. "We did everything we could," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "But is it enough?" Zara asked, her eyes fixed on the distant stars. Niran's expression was one of grim resolve. "The truth is out there now. We've done our part. Now it's up to the galaxy to decide what happens next." As they floated through the void of space, the enormity of what they had just done began to sink in. They had taken a stand against an empire, risking everything to expose the truth. And while the cost had been high, they knew that their fight had been just. The battle for the galaxy's future was far from over, but they had struck a blow that would resonate across the stars. And as they drifted towards an uncertain future, they knew that they would face whatever came next together. The end of one chapter, but the beginning of another.